So when we look into the Islamic literature on organ donation and also in your fatwa, we find that there are some linchpin arguments. For example, the issue of dignity and also the issue of bodily autonomy and ownership. With regards to your fatwa, would you kind of elaborate on that? I mean, is organ donation dignified? Is it indignified? Is it desecration of the dead? And then who owns the human body?
Even before I researched into this area, general understanding is Muslims will have this understanding that we don't own our bodies. We have stewardship of our bodies. We are caretakers of our bodies. But we need to determine the terms that we have been given for this trust that we have. And that's where the investigation lies. And so in my particular fatwa, I've tackled the issue of ownership and proprietorship of our bodies, and within the framework of rights of the individual and the right of God. And right of God here would mean where there is public interest.
Okay, so can I just clarify that for our listeners? So the argument is that if the human body, our body, does not belong to us, it belongs to God and is given to us as a trust, then human beings are not allowed to donate organs because it doesn't belong to us. You can't give away something that doesn't belong to you, it belongs to God. So that's the issue. How do you square that circle in your fatwa?
Ownership doesn't give you absolute rights of disposal.
Okay.
So just because you own something doesn't mean you can do within Islam you can do with it what you want. For example, I own money, I own property. I can't use it as I wish. I have to use it within the dictates of Islamic law. Equally, lack of ownership doesn't mean you do not have the right of disposal. As an agent, as a steward, as a guardian, you will still have right of disposal. And my conclusion in that was where there is a public interest and there is no a desecration of the body, there's no harm to the individual as well, then organ donation in that particular instance can be allowed per se.
We know in society and even in the Muslim community, if somebody was to donate his organs to his own sibling who's in need, then we don't look at this person with contempt and condemnation. We say, well, he's done a very great service and he's a hero. So here we have a situation where somebody's applauded for donating organs. So that certainly is dignity. So what is dignity, and then where does it play in when it comes to organ donation in Islam?
This is an argument against organ donation that is often repeated, that it is desecration and mutilation of the human body. So I had to look at instances within Islamic law where intervention into the human body has been allowed, and pick out instances where it has been tolerated. It provided for me that in certain circumstances an intervention into the human body is permitted. Then there were certain scriptural sort of texts that would indicate, or that possibly may indicate, that the use of human body is not permitted. And so I had to look at those particular texts on, for example, the use of human hair, the hair extensions for the filing of the teeth, etc., this kind of thing. And I had an examination of that, and my conclusion basically is where there is deception, where it is for frivolous purposes, then Islam has not allowed it. But where there is a matter of need, then Islam does allow interventions into the human body.
So who decides dignity? Is it God, or is it society?
There will be certain areas that will be clearly prescribed, and there are certain areas where it is left to human interpretation. And the basic principle we have is, if something is not clearly defined in the text, in the Quran, or in the sayings of the Prophet, peace be upon him, then it's left to custom, it's left, what we refer to as urf, it's left to societal norms to decide what is acceptable, what isn't. And my conclusion in this area is the utilizing the human body or human body parts is an area that falls into that sphere where Islam has allowed society to decide what is dignified and what isn't. And when I say society, I mean people of sound intellect, people of sound nature.
Thank you very much for that. Although I haven't been involved with this issue for 22 years like yourself, I've been researching this topic, persistently for the past 2.5 years, and I think this position that you maintain, that its dignity is rooted within the community, is your original contribution. I've read over 100 of fatwas, and I haven't come across anybody saying this. So I think Khalid Saifullah Rahmani from the Indian Fiqh Academy does allude to it, but he doesn't spell it out the way that you do.
This is something actually I've been training hospital chaplains and others, postgraduate students on this area of organ donation. I've always said this, that from all my reading on this area, my conclusion is it really depends on how you determine what dignity is and isn't. And like you already have mentioned, that live donors, nobody bats an eyelid generally in live donors. In fact, it's seen as they're looked at admired, and you possibly ask yourself the question, would I be able to do what this person has done? And so it's not something that is looked down upon. It's not something that a person is vilified for. Rather, they are respected and admired for. And so therefore it gives an indication that the perceptions of the people and the societal norms can give a ruling of permissibility.